everyone, and welcome to a Software Snacktime Snippet presented by XTIVIA. This is the first in a multi-part series on the IBM Audit, myths, pitfalls, tips, and tricks. Today, I'm joined by the CEO of the Stones Division at XTIVIA, Amir Shalev, and the Director at ITAA, Koen Dingjan. So with that, let's get into some of the myths and pitfalls. Our first myth here. Recently, a lot of IBM clients are being audited. What is going on?
Alex, I will take that one. First of all, yes, something is going on. Usually 20%, 25% of IBM customers are under an audit. But recently, I speak with my customers and prospects, and during those conversations, I learned that like every other customer is under an IBM audit. So something is going on. It seems to me that IBM really increased the efforts among IBM audits. And the question is why? And here is the answer. Take a look at IBM financials, at the recent 2 years, quarter by quarter, and see that the IBM traditional software sales are going down. Speaks with IBM team members, reps, or post-IBM people, and they will tell you also that the IBM traditional software business is going down. And take aside the ELAs and all the tricky deals that IBM knows how to do. And IBM deals, tricky deals and ELA, this is just that topic deserves a dedicated webinar by itself. But put that aside. So if you take all that information, you can jump to the conclusion that the IBM software business is going down. So IBM needs to make it up. And the easiest method to make it up is to perform IBM audits. Second, audit teams have a high quota. They have targets. I spoke with many IBM reps during my career, and I never met a seller that has a quota that was higher than the quota of an IBM audit rep. And yes, I call them IBM audit rep because from my point of view, there is no difference between a regular seller and an IBM audit person, which is a seller, like all the other sellers. Now, you may ask yourself, why IBM bothers even to conduct compliances or audits just to find few dollars here and there. But I have a surprise for you, my friends, that see us. IBM audit is a big business. And, Alex, you introduced Koen. And Koen, performed around 60 audits during his career. And let's play a game, Try to guess what is the highest payment request that Koen saw during his involvement with IBM audits. You can send it, via the Q&A box. And Koen, let's give them, few seconds and then disclose the number. So
sure.
Prepare.
Yeah, so I'll give everybody a few seconds, but yeah, I've dealt with a lot of audits from both sides. So originally, conducting them, when I was working at Deloitte on behalf of IBM, but since then also helping a lot of customers in audit defense situations, and the highest range of initial claims. Of course, these are often negotiable, and should be negotiated, of course. But I've seen claims, above 200 million US dollars, so 250, and that's of course a very a strong negotiating position for IBM to start from. They use the technical findings. And of course, there's a lot about that can be disputed about them. And I'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's of course, this is the larger organizations, but let's say 30, 40 million, that's very common, that type of risk. And 100+ million, that's more the larger organizations. But yeah, it's good to keep in mind kind of the scale of risk, which that's very common.
This is a surprising view.
Yeah, it's never a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
So our next myth here. I've been a loyal IBM customer for years. In case there's a problem, I will get a waiver.
Yes, and I believe in fairy tales, right? You know, of course, this is a myth, okay? Your relationship with IBM are irrelevant. You know, my grandmother once taught me that if you want to map or to understand the map of interest, follow the money trail. And as we spoke before, IBM Audit person equals to an IBM rep. They have targets, and their purpose is to milk you or to milk the highest possible payment that you can give them. And this is easy because this is not a nice to have purchase. This is a mandatory purchase because this is an audit. So how you can minimize this risk? Just perform self-service assessment, which is a dry run without the bad surprise of an audit.
All right, our next myth here. We have a great software asset management team. We don't use more IBM software than we purchased.
This is a pitfall. And I can tell you from my experience that this assumption can cost you a lot of money. You know, IBM is a complicated business, and the number of people that really understand IBM is very, very small. For example, IBM has several metrics that they count licenses, and we have in the slide like authorized users, we have PVU, terabyte, we have example here in the slide. So let's play another game. Do you know how many metrics IBM has? Let's go. Send us via the Q&A box the number that you think IBM, you know, the number of metrics that IBM has, and I promise a nice reward to the person that will give me the exact number. Go and submit your guesses now. Okay, so prepare and you will be happy, people, if you got this number right. If you take a look at the IBM price book, you will find 153 different metrics. Now you tell me, do you think that there is a software asset management person that can understand the differences between 153 metrics, know the rules, understand the bundles? So as much as you think that you are protected, believe me, you are not.
Thank you so much for that, Amir. That's all we have time for on this Snack Time Snippet, but please come back for the next part in this series to find out about more myths and pitfalls, and in part 3 of our series, some tips and tricks. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you, Amir, and thank you, Koen, and we will see you next time.